Alright, so welcome back to Islebound, How to Play. So in the last video we talked about the game objective, how to end the game, building your nation, building buildings in your town, and we also talked about just simply moving around the board. So for this video we're going to be talking about visiting an island. So first of all, before we get into what visiting means at each of the different isles in this game, let's just do a demonstration of a turn simply visiting an isle. Okay, so here I am here with this boat at Marhaven. So it's my turn. I am going to move 2 spaces because I can only move 2 spaces and I don't have fish. So I'm going to move through here past Borsham and then up here to Rock Slide. Now, you can barely see that it's called Rock Slide in this video, probably, but when we actually talk about all the different isles in this game, you'll get a close-up on all of them, so no worries there. So, now that I've moved to that island, now I'm going to visit Rock Slide. Now, I can, for instance, I can complete a free action right now if I want to, like, for instance, I'm visiting Rock Slide, so if I had a pirate, which I don't have a pirate card currently, but if I had one, I could complete this event here for Rock Slide, because it has a token on Rock Slide, so I could complete that event as a free action right now if I wanted to. But I don't have a pirate right now, so I can't complete that event. So that's one free action I can't do right now. So what we're going to do is we are going to just simply visit the isle. Now you'll get a up close and personal view of Rock Slide later, but for now I have to pay a coin to simply visit there. So that's one of the payments I have to pay, but that's not all I have to pay. So here's a coin. I've paid it to the treasure map, because that's what you do when you visit an island. You will always pay when visiting to the treasure map. Now, if you are if you are at a certain isle that makes you pay coins another way, like if you've already completed the tax to visit the isle, but the isle makes you lose more money, or you buy a building, for instance, you will pay the money amount to the bank instead, or to back to the supply of coins. So, now that we've paid part of the tax, there's actually something else that will take place here in Rock Slide as an additional payment. When you visit Rock Slide, you also must exhaust one of your crew members. So, let's get a close-up view of that. Let's get a close-up view of the ship. So here's my crewmates, okay? You have to start with 2 crewmates that have this scroll-like paper on top of them. They are administrates. And then you also get one of these workers as well. The one with the hands. You'll start with one of them as well. So you'll get only 3 crew members to start the game off with. But you can get more crew members by visiting certain isles. And we'll talk about where you get them shortly, or later for that matter. But that's what's going to happen. So that's really cool. Now, I have to exhaust one of these crew members, however, when visiting Rock Slide. So, I'm going to exhaust this parrot folk here. So when you exhaust him, he's going to go down here into the ship's hold, if you will, or where these obvious canopy beds are. And so that's where he's going to go. And he's going to stay there until you visit an isle that has a bed on it. Okay? Now, there is something else that could possibly happen. Sometimes there'll be times when you'll have an injured crew member. If you have an injured crew member, you'll not only bring him down here to the hold, you will also flip him over onto the other side to indicate that he's also injured. Now you'll notice that this has symbols on it, and this symbol here with the potion is actually not even in the game. That's because all of these crew members here are actually can be also added to the above and below game as well. So this is the version that you can add to above and below as like an extra expansion, if you will. So you can take these out of your Islebound game and put them into your above and below game because they will work for above and below. So that's really cool. And the parrot folk here, they weren't in above and below, so now you'd have, a parrot folk to add to the game of above and below. But that's only if they're injured will they go on this side. Otherwise, they will stay here in like this in this ship's hold. So that's the other payment of visiting the isle known as Rockslide. So now I've paid the 2 payments that is required to visit Rockslide. So now let's complete the action. Okay? Or should I say the action of visiting. So when you visit Rockslide, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to get a book. So here's a book. So that's one of the things you're going to get. You can use books on a particular isle. You can use books to pay them for renown. Up here, where my finger is pointed, is the renown track. And when you get renown, you're going to put a cube of your color onto this renown track. It goes all the way up to 6. And once you have gotten 7 renown, you are going to acquire something really cool that is going to be worth 7 extra renown points at the end of the game. And when you achieve one of these, you can get a variety of different possibilities. If you achieve this one, you're going to immediately get 4 fish into your supply. Some will give you sea serpents, some will give you pirates, some will give you wood, some will just give you money, but they're all going to give you something of additional benefit for achieving one of these. Now, another thing that's really good is you're probably going to end up achieving a lot of these because after you've attained this, when you get your next renown, you're just simply going to put the cube of your color back on to the renown track to try to achieve another one of these. So that's basically what that means. So, obviously books can be very useful when you want to get more renown. But books have another use as well. Books are also necessary when buying certain buildings. Will require you to have... none of these will actually require you. But when you buy a building, sometimes there will be a token that says you must have a book in your inventory to buy this card, to purchase it. Some will say you need 2 books, and some will say you'll need to have 3 books. Now, you don't have to pay the books in order to buy the cards. You just simply need to have that many books in order to buy the buildings, or the cards, for that matter. So that's the main use you're going to want books for, is it's going to increase the amount of cards or buildings you can buy on your turn. So having an extra book or 2 will definitely be useful. But once they've served that purpose, you can trade in your books for extra renown. So that's pretty cool. So that's one of the things you're going to get. So you're going to get a book, and you can put the book... That's a good spot for your book, right there on the player board, right there. That's a good spot. Now, the other thing you're going to get is you're also going to get 1 renown for visiting Rockslide. And so, therefore, I could put my cube on number 1 because it's my first renown. And then that would complete that action. And so the only thing left would be to simply, obviously, buy some buildings if I have enough coin to buy a building. But then that would end my turn, and that's basically what you possibly might do on a particular isle. Now, obviously, there's lots of different isles, and they do lots of different things. So, let us start going over them, because there's quite a few of them, and let's talk about each one in particular. Let's start with the one that's closest, that everyone can see first. So, let's talk about this one here. Underval. I keep saying Underwall, but I guess it's Underval. When you visit Underval, it has a bed, first of all. So whenever you visit Underval, any crew member that is basically in your hold of the ship that's exhausted is going to be able to go back on top with the rest of the crew members and be active once again. So they get some rest, and now they've been replenished, and now you can use them for a variety of different things again. When they're exhausted, they're of no use to you when they're exhausted, which makes sense, right? Okay, and then after you do that, then you get this symbol here with the plus, and what looks like a person means you get 1 extra crew member. Well, that's nice, right? So, how do you get crew members? All right, well, let's view it down here. Okay, so let's get this out. So here's the crew members here that I have access to currently. And when you obtain a crew member, you'll just replenish it. So I can obtain this crew member here, the lizard guy, and he can be just simply added to my ship. I just automatically get him as a crew member. There's 2 aisles that you can get crew members from, I believe, and so this is one of them. Now, if I decide I wanted the fish folk instead, or the boarman instead, or boar folk instead, or hog guy, or whatever, you would have to pay 1 additional coin to acquire from this location. But this one over here is always free to do so. You can always get him for free because he's in the free spot. And then you would just move these guys over, and a new one would take up its space right here. There's a lot of different crew members that you could possibly get, and they each have a variety of different abilities. And we will go over them in a later video of what they actually can do. But basically, I would get to add this lizard guy here to my already awesome ship of cool peoples, for sure. We got the logos, we got the frog folk, we got a parrot folk, and now we got this lizard folk as well. So I'm definitely having a lot of fun here, having all these different races for sure. But there's still, some more I might want to get, like the fish folk, or the boar folk guy, But anyways, so that's what you would get. You'd get him. But another thing to note is after you get your crew member, you're going to lose a coin as well. So you better make sure you have a coin to pay. And you'll pay this coin not to the treasure map, but to the supply. You only do that when you do tax. Well, you actually add a coin to the treasure map when you do tax for visiting. But when you are visiting an island that requires you to pay some more additional money, you are just going to pay the money to the supply. And that's all that would happen when visiting Underval. So that explains what happens when you visit it. Okay? Alright, so let's put the lizard guy back and talk about the next aisle that is on this board here. Okay, so here we have Sun's Rest. When you visit Sun's Rest, you'll have to pay a coin. Okay? Then for the visiting, you can pay 2 fish to acquire a sea serpent. And so, this is one of the ways you can get sea serpents in this game. Now, when I first was doing the unboxing video, I just thought that the sea serpents were something that came and attacked you. But actually, they don't usually attack you in this game. Actually, you're going to be using them to attack, which is really cool. And so, if I had 2 fish, I could then trade in 2 fish for this awesome sea serpent. If I had more than 2 fish, if I had 4 fish, I could trade in 4 fish for 2 sea serpents. So let's just get 4 fish. Let's say I had 4 fish. So here's my 4 fish. I could pay all 4 of these fish and then pay them back to the supply, and I would get 2 sea serpents. Isn't that awesome? Now, you are limited to the amount of you can get. Of course, you can only get so many because you can only have so many fish on board. So technically, if you had 10 fish at max, you could only get, obviously, 5 sea serpents, because that's how many fish you could have max. But usually, that's not the point. That's not the case. Usually, it's the amount of crew members you're going to have on board. And exhausted crew members can't help you here. So let's just show you what I mean. We have 3 crew members here. Let's say this guy was exhausted. I would therefore only have 2 crew members who weren't exhausted on deck. If I wanted to get a bunch of sea serpents, even though I had enough fish to do so, I could still only get 2 sea serpents because I only have 2 crew members that are alive and active and awake. Those exhausted ones won't help you here. So, obviously, even if I had all 3 here, I still could only get 3 sea serpents. So I'd have to use 6 fish to get these 3 sea serpents. This is why you might want to have more crew members. More crew members means more opportunities for things, because some of these isles will definitely require you to have a certain amount of active and alert crew members on board. So having more means you'll be able to do things like this and get more stuff for your visit, which is awesome. Now, obviously, sea serpents are one of the ways you can attack. You can also attack with pirates as well, and any combination. But you must have these in order to attack. So in the beginning of the game, no one is going to be able to attack because nobody is going to have pirates in the beginning of the game, and nobody is going to have sea serpents in the beginning of the game. They might have to visit a couple of isles to acquire these before they will have enough to actually attack. Now, the same thing can be said for diplomacy. You usually are not going to have enough influence at the beginning of the game in order to use diplomacy at an isle. So one way or the other, you're going to have to visit isles that will either give you sea serpents, either give you pirates, or basically help out some people to gain some influence, and you can do that a number of ways, one of which is by completing events. You can get influence that way. And then if you have enough influence, then you can use diplomacy to take over an island peacefully. And that's basically what that all means. But anyways, that's how Sun's Rest is going to work. Now, we still have one more isle on this board, so let's finish it. Okay, so this one here is Farwold. When you visit this isle, you'll notice it has a trumpet on it. It's the only isle that has a trumpet. And on the big player boards here, on the one where the influence track is, and the obviously the renown track is, and where the crew members are as well, that you can acquire, you're also going to see that it has these cards with these trumpets on it, and you'll have access to 2. There'll be two choices to choose from, and with a pile of cards underneath them. This is interesting. When you decide you want to visit Farwold, you'll get to activate one of these. And then you get to brag of something you might have. You get to brag of your city. You get to brag of your reach. You get to brag of your crew. You get to brag of your friends. And there's many, many more way of bragging. Now, you're going to brag. Let's say you decide you want to brag of your crew. The player who does this is going to get 1 renown for just simply bragging of their crew. Then they're also going to get plus 1 more renown for every crew member that they have that is alert, awake, and ready. So therefore, if I had used this trumpet here, this card, to brag of my crew, I would get 5 renown because I have 4 of my crew members alert and awake and alive and well. And then I'd get 1 additional one just by simply activating this card. Now, this is a card that's a one-time use, so once you activate this card, you will never activate this again, ever. So that's something to note. Now, let's just say I achieved 5 because I had 4 crew members. Okay. Well, another thing that happens when you brag of your crew, you're not the only one that's going to get renown. Your opponents are also going to get renown depending on how many crew members they have, if this was the card they would do. The only thing that makes it different is you are the player that's going to get that 1 extra renown by playing the card, by activating it, by blowing this trumpet, if you will. The other players are still going to have access to this, but they may not necessarily get as many renown as you regardless. Because let's say I did get 5, because I have four crew members here, and I was the one that bragged of my crew. Let's just say, for the point of argument, that the other player, they just happen to have the same folk as I do. But their Logos is exhausted, their Lizard folk is exhausted, and so is their Frog folk, and therefore they only have, obviously, the Parrot folk alive and well. That means that that player would only get 1 renown, because they only had 1 crew member alert and ready. So there is some advantages to visiting Farwold, the Isle of Farwold, at certain times of the game, because there might be times when you can brag of your crew because you know you have the majority of the crew alive and active, while your opponents may not have nearly as many alive and active. And they might not have visited those isles that give you extra crew members as well. So you might have more crew members than them. And so obviously doing this when you have more crew members than them would be the ideal time to activate this one in particular. Now we won't go over each of these right now. I just want to use that as a demonstration. So that's how that is going to work if you visit Farwold. Now, there's one other thing that's going to happen for your visit of Farwold. And that is, you're either going to get 1 wood, or you're going to get 2 fish. It's your choice. Do you want 2 fish or wood to add to your supply on your ship? It's up to you. But that's what you're also going to get. So you're also going to get another additional benefit for visiting as well. Now, we've gone over 3 of the isles in this game that you can visit, and we still have a lot more to go over. But there is one thing I want to mention now, that you kind of understand what visiting means. Now, when you decide you're going to attack an isle, let's say you're going to attack Sun's Rest, or let's say you are going to use diplomacy here on Underval instead of visiting the isle. When you do those, you don't pay the tax, first of all. When you attack and use your influence, you won't do this. Okay? But you must have a certain amount of influence. To do this one, you'd have to have at least 7 influence in order to use diplomacy and take this isle over. And in order to attack Sun's Rest, your attack strength will have to be 5 or more. When you attack an opponent, or say not attack an opponent, when you attack an isle, you're going to roll a dice, okay? You're going to roll a bunch of dice. So let's say I have let's just say I have like 10 sea serpents and 10 pirates in my supply. But I want to use 1 sea serpent, 2 sea serpents, and I also want to use a pirate in the attack, okay? Let's say that's the case. Now, I have to have an attack power of 5 in order to take the isle over. Now, this should be more than enough, because if I roll a 4 or higher for the pirate, for instance, that's going to give me an attack power of 2. If I roll a 2 or 3, if I roll a 5 for the sea serpent, it's going to give me an attack power of 3. So if I was able to get 2 of these maxed out for a 1 dice of a 4 and 1 dice of a 5, that would be enough in order to take over a location. Another thing that would be enough is for the pirate here, if I was able to roll at least a 1, I could use that dice for this pirate, and I'd get an attack power of 1. And then for the sea serpent, it's if you roll at least a 3, you're going to get an attack power of 2. So you could still technically maybe take over the isle. But it's not a guarantee, because with the sea serpents, if you get a 1 or 2, obviously you're not going to get any attack power at all. Now here's what's really cool. When you roll the dice, you're going to roll 3 dice at the same time, because that's how many I currently have here. And there are other ways of adding more dice. If I wanted to use more dice, I could just add another sea serpent or another pirate to the equation, and then maybe that would be 5 dice I get to roll. And there are still other ways you can do that. And we will talk about that actually when we start talking about attacking. But that's what that means. Now, that's what's really cool. So, let's say I decided I got 2 sea serpents here, and I've got the pirate here, and I rolled 3 dice, okay? Now, I wouldn't have to use a dice for any particular one I wanted. I could choose whatever dice for each of these. So maybe I will choose the 5 for the sea serpent, and that's allowed. And I could choose the 3 for that sea serpent, and I could choose the 4 for this pirate, which would give me an attack power of 2, 5, and 8, which would be more than enough for Sun's Rest. So that's basically what that means. It's still somewhat of a gamble if you don't use enough sea serpents and pirates to attack. It's still sort of a gamble. If you fail an attack, we will talk about that actually when we start talking about attacking for reals. I just wanted to basically go over that a little bit, what that means to attack. Now, and we will actually talk about the benefits of attacking in the next video as well, or in the next ones when we start talking about attacking. Now, we still have a bunch of islands to go over, so we'll go over them in the next video.